biosolids is the rhetorical question I put up there. And what are the things that we can all benefit from being aware of in terms of the issues that help to direct our energy and our activities in biosolids? Like if you don't know what global gap is, and if you don't know what a TOrC is, and you're still wondering what IR square is, it's because we need to make sure that we're responsible for understanding the conversations that are affecting our future. Toxic organic compounds are probably the issue in the public that is so much in their mind, and it's a fear that we need to help address. And for a while there, it was flame retardants, and before that was PCBs, and then there's pharmaceuticals. And then Triclosan is like the good news story. It's like so compelling a story that Triclosan is an unnecessary, persistent commodity in our consumer products that it is being removed from the marketplace, or has been removed from the marketplace, and we're going to see those levels come down. But then what we have next is the next level of concern, PFAS. Who knows what PFAS is if you didn't read it on there? Perfluoroalkyl substances, okay. It hasn't been a big issue at home here, but up in New England, Ned Beecher, my counterpart up in New England, is very concerned about PFAS. There has been a lot of conversation. But let me ask you this. The question that I pose for us here is how can we, as environmental stewards, be responsible for addressing the issue and making sure that a proper regulatory response is given and necessary reassurances to the public are given? And what can we be responsible as stewards of protecting the quality of our biosolids such that we are part of the conversation on how these compounds get removed from consumer products and how they can be managed safely in the environment and do not pose a risk to groundwater and public water supplies? We are part of that system, and we need to see that we are connected to it. Global gap, good agricultural practices. Why is it that the global gap said no to biosolids? Well, we weren't a part of the conversation, apparently. We tried. We were part of a group of biosolids associations that stepped up and tried to make the case that biosolids is a resource that can be recovered and beneficially used in agriculture. Not only that, but it actually improves the health of soils. It did not cause the global gap standards to be revised yet. We have a national organization, and there is an effort. Greg Kester out of California is leading that effort to bring a conversation to the National Office of the GAP, which is a certification of farmers on using good agricultural practices. Why the biosolids recycling should be a supported practice. But we were not another one of the issues here. We as an industry, we as a profession, need to be networked in with that conversation around what are good agricultural practices and explain why it is that we meet that test. The other interesting conversation that's out there that I would recommend to you is reframing the benefits of biosolids. It's not just that we are a good replacement for chemical fertilizer. It is connecting ourselves to a different endpoint, a more one that really resonates more with a lot of people, and that is the quality and health of soils. One of the little stories I was going to tell you is that just yesterday I got those little things that pop up in the corner of your screen. It says your Facebook, one of your Facebook friends has posted something. Well, I really recommend to you Kiss the Ground. Who follows Kiss the Ground on Facebook? Kiss the Ground. Oh, they are such lovely movie stars and actors out in California, and they raise all sorts of money to build up public awareness of the importance of soil. And they have some of the best videos on composting. I really recommend it to you. But it kept popping up, this assertion that soil microorganisms put out serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone, and that when you garden, that serotonin is absorbed by your body. And that's why you love to garden, because you put your hands in all this healthy soil microbe hormones. I have no idea if that's true or not. Charlie White, who's going to be speaking by phone to us tomorrow, is that kind of guy who might have an answer to that. I put a call into him, but I didn't hear from him. But the idea is connecting our biosolids program and our commitment to resource recovery to that movement on healthy soils is one way that we build a connection to a larger community. Also, if you don't know that WEF has committed itself to additional staff to support biosolids, we need to be drawing upon them, and we need to be expecting that they're there for us, and we need to be partnering with them. And that's Patrick Doob and Travis Loop. I can't imagine that there is a more appropriate name than Travis Loop in our biosolids field now. He is the social media and communications director for WEF. Loop, you may recognize as the brand name for the Class B biosolids that Seattle produces out in the Pacific Northwest, and that we hired out of EPA because of his discouragement with the new administration, a fellow in the communications office whose name is Loop. It's perfect. And now Travis has already done one thing for us. He has put together a response to something else I'm going to be talking about, which is the program, it's not in my sequence, Biosludge. Is everybody have themselves ready to watch Biosludge when it comes out, when it's released? Okay, Biosludge. That is actually, it goes back to that story that Lisa was giving us at the beginning of the audit of the National Whistleblower Center. That was instigated by David Lewis, who back 30 years ago was complaining about biosolids. Well, he's reemerged as the hero of the movie Biosludge, and Travis Loop has put together some talking points because we think that there will be some communications with local agencies, and we need to be prepared with messages and facts that we can use when interviewed by local media. But in the meantime, one of the other things that we've already talked about is phosphorus. And the reason I put it up here is that this is a big deal globally. The effort that is being put together to find common ground around issues of recovering of phosphorus as a nutrient to protect for the long future, not just for tomorrow's struvite problems at the wastewater plant, is grown. And there was a conference, this sludge, phosphorus. Sustainable Phosphorus Alliance, I think it was called. And for all its big dealness, wastewater agencies, even though it's the largest flow of phosphorus in the environment that is potentially recoverable, was only represented pretty much by a couple of the industry folks, the associations, but primarily by Chris Piot from DC Water. And he essentially, I think, made the point to them that it would really help if you'd like to subsidize our phosphorus recovery, and if you give us some flexibility on the way you regulate effluent discharges, because your effluent criteria really cause us to use iron as a precipitate for phosphorus. And when you do that, it makes it very hard to use any of these technologies to recover phosphorus in a meaningful way as a fertilizer. So unless you are willing to see the large system and help subsidize our capture of the phosphorus, it's very unlikely that the wastewater plants are going to go wholesale into an aggressive phosphorus recovery. Maybe not what Gerhard wants to hear, but that was sort of the message that he was giving out to the world, that we need a large, and the message for us is we need to be a part of a larger conversation around phosphorus and the global implications of a pending global crisis around unavailable phosphorus for agriculture. So I put out these now monthly biosolids topics, and one of my last ones was on antibiotic resistance. And ARG, antibiotic resistance genes, there are some scientists who really think this is like one of the looming catastrophes in the world. The possibility that there will be a breakout of epidemic proportions of microbes that are resistant to our antibiotics. And wastewater is actually wastewater plants are being targeted by some researchers as being a breeding ground for ARG genes. Like, we are concentrating and proliferating ARG genes in the environment at our wastewater plants. And what we need to be responsible for and what we can look for is how we design our treatment plants to specifically, and our biosolids processes, specifically to minimize the risk of the transmission of microbes that have antibiotic resistance in them. And it's possible, since that we do not have the so the story I was going to give about gut biota has to do with that. It's almost free now to analyze biosolids for the kind of microbes that are in them. The ability for us in the future to be monitoring on a regular basis our biosolids for the DNA of the organisms in there is plummeting so fast that we can be responsible for seeing that our biosolids is understood for its role in the transmission of ARG. Oh, this is the biosludge. So this is a screenshot from the pitch, the trailer, so-called, for Biosludge. I just recommend it to you. I don't want to see it myself, to tell you the truth. Jeff Miller is going to be presenting from WEF at our conference, and one of his projects is IR squared. Is that what you call it, Jeff? IR squared? It's the intensification of resource recovery. I have seen the results of the program that they've had in Manhattan College the last couple of years. Awesome work around inviting new technologies to make pitches on their new approaches. And biosolids, and especially those that have thermal components, are a major focus. And it's a place where we're seeing an acceleration of the introduction of new technologies. And so I invite everybody here to be mindful of IRR or IR squared and consider attending. So this is one of my fun things, the fourth industrial revolution. I was a subject matter expert out in Dublin at the Blue Tech Research Forum held in early June. And I heard all about the fourth industrial revolution. I'm sure the fourth industrial revolution is a concept that's been around for years, but it was like, okay, now I get it. The Internet of Things. Oh my God. Artificial intelligence, sensors, predictive analytics. That's what the world's going to. The whole world. And so I woke up yesterday morning and Elon Musk, who is out there talking about how humanity's biggest threat right now is artificial intelligence and how it's going to take over the world. And he's investing in it, so I guess he knows. So, but the reason I bring it up is that I was so impressed with this, I wrote a blog about it, and one of our speakers here was the only one who commented on it. It's perhaps one of the very, very few comments I've gotten on any of the blogs I've ever written. He said, Bill, if you're really excited about the fourth industrial revolution, you need to find another industry to be talking about. It's not biosolids. We are never going to be into the fourth industrial revolution. Maybe not, but maybe we are. I don't see any good reason why we won't eventually be a part of the fourth industrial revolution. So this was the dahe. I mean, this is not the new thing. This is the thing that we all know. And I have been doing news clippings for 3 years. There is nothing out there that is more provocative to public opposition than biosolids odors. We have not solved the issue yet. Thermal hydrolysis is one of the approaches, maybe, and it still has its problems. So we still have our work cut out for us because, quite truthfully, if we have lived with this for the last 40 years, many of us, and we haven't solved it, it's probably because we just don't really buy into that being the number one goal. So let me go through a couple of things that may be missed in our agenda for the next day and a half, and I'll just go through a couple of the things. Sludge disintegration was sort of the term of art for everything that we were doing to try to get anaerobic digesters to produce more biogas. Now, it turned out that many of these things really didn't work, and the reasons for doing disintegration, such as thermal hydrolysis, it was not really only tied to biogas production. There's other good reasons for using technologies to condition the sludges that are being fed into the digester. And there's so many different approaches. And if you start at the bottom, the mechanical ones have largely disappeared from the marketplace, although some are still surviving, and some may work on particular kinds of sludges, but for the most part, they don't seem to be working that well on biosolids. Thermal hydrolysis has come to the top, has floated to the top, I guess, as a technology for preconditioned biosolids. hydrolysis stage. But it's not the only approach that allows us to be more effective in our anaerobic digestion, and we'll hear some of those this week, this next 2 days. We hear about the biological hydrolysis, we'll learn about Listec, and we'll learn about ways of managing our digesters better from Joshua Ma, looking at technologies that may help to optimize digestion performance. And we have a new exhibitor back there, DN Tanks, who has been who expressed an interest in being part of that conversation around how we can manage our infrastructure for digestion in a way that optimizes for performance. And there's been a lot of advances in anaerobic digestion, and I won't go over some of these because we've already heard about them, and we will continue to hear more about them. But one thing we don't have covered here, very well at the conference, has to do with biogas utilization. And part of that is because if what you're doing is based on demonstrating that you're saving money in electricity production, you're probably not barking up the right tree. And so any way we can produce a product of greater value with the biogas, or find some other way of converting it into a usable product, is going to be a win. And I think some of the interesting work that's out there on the edges has to do with creating chemical feedstocks or converting biogas into some other usable transportation fuel. And fortunately, I don't have to get too far into thermochemical processes because Jeff is going to do that for us. Perhaps no area has attracted more interest as the holy grail of biosolids, converting biosolids into transportation fuels and other beneficial energy sources than these variety of processes. Stan Chilson is in the audience. He's one of the experts on it. But we also have Jeff Miller's, we talked about a couple of the technologies that they're championing in the LIFT program. And also, since I did this thing, I've found a couple of them are gone. So they've come and gone, even in the matter of months that I have been working on these slides. The one at the bottom, I guess, for those who missed it, Orange County Sanitation District came up with its master plan for biosolids. They released that just about a month ago. The Aqua Critox thought it was going to be a part of their long-distance master plan. It was not. And so whether supercritical water oxidation has a future in biosolids, I guess is more up in the air now than it was this time last year. It's one of those very hard to see how an intense technology like that would have a reasonable place in the marketplace for biosolids, but nevertheless they were champions of that. There have been a good number of advances in dewatering and drying, and we'll hear some of these this week also. Particularly interested in the what we can learn from ARGHHH, from Drew. He'll be talking about that. And we already heard about CNP Airprex and how that has benefited dewatering. And Mike Nicholson, I see he's just turned his head there. You may have noticed that I mentioned the thin film drying. He took me up to Middlesex County, and I was quite impressed. And if you want to learn about how you might be able to use a thermal dryer as a dewatering facility rather than as a dryer, he's the man to talk about that. And then we also have Rob Kirshner has been representing the solar dryers. There's a lot of stuff in here that I think we are still working out the best matches between technology and the facilities. Yeah, these are the ones that we'll hear about more. We find out by networking while you're here. And we've heard a lot about phosphorus extraction already. I'll just mention renewable nutrients. They're members of MABA. They've been at our conferences in the past. Interestingly enough, at the Biosolids conference, I learned from them that their real play is in agriculture right now. They're removing phosphorus from hog lagoons. But the interesting use of the phosphorus is they're feeding it back to the hogs. One of the biggest costs in hog growing apparently is feeding them phosphorus. And so they can recover the phosphorus from the manure and then take it right back to the hogs. Who would have thought? And we'll hear from Trudy Johnston later about high-quality biosolids, because part of the conversation that we're having is how do we better distinguish biosolids that meets the test of the marketplace from the Class A EQ product as we know it to be in our Part 503 regulations. But beyond that, there's other ways that we are trying to move our products to a higher level of acceptability in the marketplace. And Bob Woolbridge is in the back here. He has been championing the thermal process systems, meso-air and therm-air processes for aerobic post-treatment of biosolids. Talk to him. And we also have, keep track of the good stories around the positive uses of biosolids for restoring fire-ravaged lands in California, which has been a major issue. And so just a couple other things to keep up on. One of the issues I believe that is still out there that we really haven't fully confronted is how the upfront changes in wastewater treatment, whether it's membrane bioreactors or anammox, mainstream anammox, or even just some of the very high-level performance for wastewater treatment for removal of pharmaceuticals impacts the quality of the biosolids. We're finding that the more we treat biosolids at the main liquid side of the plant, the harder it is to get the biosolids dewatering equipment to perform. So it really has to be handled as a system. We also don't have a lot on. We have Dennis Palmer just stepped out, but I was going to try to get him to help fill in on a gap that we have in our program on the experience he's had at Landis Sewage Authority in New Jersey around the co-digestion of food waste. That too has an impact on anaerobic digestion, and he is also dealing with the business side of how to make that program work.